Hi, I'm Manny from OG Combat Academy. So in this short clip, we're going to be talking about abuse and domestic violence. The reason why we're talking about this is because of the current situation going on, because of the pandemic. People are stuck at home with abusive relatives and partners. There's been more cases of domestic violence and abuse during this period. Okay, so we're going to talk about it briefly, and then after this slide, the next coming video is going to be the practical aspects of the self-defense. So, what is abuse? Abuse is a pattern of behavior that seeks to control and exercise power over others. It's a global problem that can affect anyone, no matter what gender, ethnicity, sexuality, or age. Now, what is domestic abuse? Domestic abuse involves a pattern of abusive behaviors, both physical and non-physical, that can take place within a relationship with a family, friends, or an intimate partner, and can continue after the relationship has ended. And it has, devastating effects. Now, most people say abuse is never the fault of the victim, which is true. Abusers usually want to blame the victims for their actions. The reverse is the case. You shouldn't blame the victim. It is you doing what you are doing. It is you. It is the abuser doing it. There's no excuse for abuse, domestic abuse. Okay, so now we're going to talk about categories of domestic abuse. What are the categories of domestic abuse? There's the physical abuse. This involves use of any physical act in order to harm, frighten, and gain control over another person. It can also be physical contact, which aims to frighten and control, things like shoving, pushing, holding a person down and beating them. The next one is sexual abuse. Even if the person is your partner and all that, if your no should be no, no matter how much they want to force themselves on you, and vice versa. Sexual abuse is one of them. And this sexual abuse not only a partner issue, it's not only like people within a relationship, it also happens between relatives. You see adult relatives abusing younger ones, or your cousins, your aunts, your nephews, nieces. It goes on like that. Abuse is usually carried out by people that you're most close to. So the next is emotional abuse. This type of abuse belittles and demeans a person through erratic behavior, which keeps you off balance. They just do things to demean you, belittle you, say all the horrible things they want to say about you, and give you no chance of, or give you no sense of respect or anything. They cause zero respect for you, and they make you think you are nothing. That's emotional abuse. And then verbal abuse has to do with name calling, shouting, swearing, and cursing, intimidation and fear through words. Threatening somebody that you will do this to them, you will do that to them, you will make this happen if they don't do certain things. People threatening you that way. That's verbal abuse. Now there's mental abuse, playing mind games with you. When the abuser is playing mind games with you, blaming you, or other issues such as alcohol, depression, some of them even claim dementia for the abuse. They blame it for the abuse and causing you to believe that you are suffering from depression, or mental health issues. So some of them even turn it around, and make you the problem. That's the society we live in today, and in recent times, that's what's been going on. People fail to acknowledge that they are the problem and take responsibility for their actions. They blame the victim. It's another way of, victimization. So we'll move on to the next slide. For their actions, they blame the victim. It's another way of, victimization. So we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, there's financial abuse. This one is the person is controlling your money, taking your money, never paying for anything and keeping a check on whatever you spend and buy. These people, they are leeches, parasites. They never give. All they do is take, take, take. This is another form of abuse. So to recap, there's physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, mental abuse, and financial abuse. Okay, now we'll go on to the next slide. The cycle of abuse. Okay. Now, most victims of domestic abuse usually report that the abuse comes as a cycle, and it has three phases, which may vary in occurrence. But the episode of abuse, the honeymoon period, the tension rising. I'll explain this in the next slide. Now, the stages of the cycle, right? The honeymoon period is when everything looks fine and beautiful, you're all lovey-dovey, the beginning of a relationship, and, feel things calm and normal, all right? Then the tension rising phase is when signs of abuse start to show. The abuser will try to exert control or fear on the victim. This will build into an incident and can involve in all categories of abuse, as mentioned earlier. So the abuser will normally, as they usually do, blame the victim for the abuse and try to justify the abusive behavior. The cycle will then begin again with the honeymoon period being used as a bait to stop the victim leaving or pressing charges, which they show you all the love, all the care, all the concern, make you feel like you are their world and they are yours, and so that you won't press any charges or go to the authorities or retaliate or leave them, just to keep you all caged inside while they repeat the cycle of abuse again. So next up, we're going to talk about warning signs of abuse. So what are the warning signs? Possessiveness and jealousy, dislike for your friends and or family, lying and unreliability, secretiveness, imposition of their beliefs or opinions on you, and then belittling of your beliefs and opinions, bad temper, physical aggression with someone else. Now, someone else could be anybody at all. It could be, especially if they've had an ex before, if they've got an ex that they've been physically abusive with, you should watch out for people like that because they end up doing it again. Blames others for their mistakes or problems. They never take responsibility for what they do. They blame other people for it. Verbal mistreatment, always saying, raining verbal abuse on you, not saying anything nice to you or about you in your face, belittling you, like previously stated. Regular or heavy use of drugs or alcohol, watch for people like that. And those ones also tend to blame it on the drugs and